not as of yet.
This meeting of the Starkville Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Alderman Parker.
I'm going to check with Chris and see on the two planning under room number 11, B3, A and B under planning, the two public hearings and requests for the rezoning changes, A and B. How can we put that on consent if we do the public hearing?
We can. I'll do a call for the public hearing just like we did in the last meeting.
Okay.
And can do that right now, Mayor, if you want to.
All right, the
your
proposed
pleasure.
revision from Alderman Parker is to place items 11B3A and item 11B3B on the consent agenda. Those matters are as follows. The approval of, is that a typo, RZ 13-05? It is RZ dash,
That's my understanding.
should it be PZ dash 1305?
It's a rezoning. It's ours.
Okay. All right. The approval of RZ number 13-05, which was a request for a rezoning by Ms. Carrie Copeland from R3 to C1, located at 1011 Evergreen Street in Ward 5. How many conditions were recommended by P&Z?
There were none on that one. Were there, Ms. Stroll, my recollection?
All right, as presented. The second matter is the approval of RZ 13-06, a request for rezoning by Clyde Pritchard, acting on behalf of Charles and Kenneth Burns, for rezoning from R1 to B1, located on Highway 12 East, extended in Ward 5, with how many conditions?
With the condition recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission of excluding mobile home and manufactured homes from the rezoning.
Is that the only condition?
It is to my knowledge.
All right, with the condition as recommended by P&Z, excluding mobile homes from the permitted use in the zoning classification. Otherwise, or actually completely as presented. Now, those are the two matters that Alderman Parker has proposed to place on the consent agenda. If the board does not object to his proposed revision and then ultimately approves the consent agenda, those matters will be adopted by the board. Now, the city attorney is going to call for any comments so that anyone wishing to speak on either of those matters may be heard at this point. This will be your opportunity to be heard before potentially the board approves those matters. Mr. Attorney?
Sure. As to item number 3A, I see the applicant, Ms. Carrie Copeland, in the room. Now that this matter has been placed on the proposed consent agenda, would you like to be heard on the issue?
If y'all are okay with it. I don't have much to add other than what we had at planning and zoning, but I'm not going to speak to any of y'all, so I can surely speak your name.
You understand what the mayor's saying is that it's placed on the proposed consent agenda, which means it will pass on the consent agenda and go through. So the relief you requested will be granted. You do have
I
the,
don't have to talk to you.
okay. Does anyone else want to speak on that issue? And that's the rezoning of the old Copeland Medical Clinic from R3 to C1 to allow the frame shop. Is that correct, Ms. Copeland?
Yes, sir.
Anyone wants to speak on that issue? Anyone wanting to speak on that issue? Anyone wanting to speak on that issue? The second matter is the rezoning of the tract of land north of the Research and Technology Park. I see the applicant in attendance, Mr. Clyde Pritchard, and his representative. Would you guys like to speak on the matter now that it's been placed on the proposed consent agenda? Would anyone else want to speak on that issue? Anyone else? Anyone else?
Mr. Ladham.
Yes, ma'am.
And could I say, for those who maybe aren't real familiar with the project that's proposed, there's a good deal of information in the e-packet, which is available on the city's website, including some pictures that will give you a better feel for what is proposed for that site. I'd like to say that this is a case where the process worked very well. Comments were taken and incorporated during the planning and zoning process, and I think there's a good, strong project that comes forward out of those meetings and discussions.
Due process has been met, Mr. Mayor.
All right, the city attorney certifies that the due process requirements have been met for both of these matters. They are now eligible for the consent agenda. The proposed revision from Alderman Parker is to so place them on the consent agenda. Is there any objection to that proposed revision? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those two matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Parker, do you have further proposed revisions?
I do, under departmental business 11, under personnel, items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Proposed revisions from Alderman Parker are to place items 11H1 through 4 on the consent agenda. Those items are as follows. The authorization to advertise to fill the vacant position of firefighter as presented. The authorization to hire LaToya Williams to fill the vacant position of radio operator, records clerk in the police department. The authorization to transfer Kenesha Hendricks to fill the vacant position of deputy clerk in the finance and administration department as presented. The authorization to hire a temporary employee in the sanitation and environmental services department due to FMLA leave of absence as presented. Alderman Parker, was that your proposed revision?
It was.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Parker?
I have one more. We have an item that's already on the consent agenda, which are the sign variances for the horse park. But we also have a public appearance by Mrs. Miller. If it stays on the consent agenda and you feel like you want to make your presentation, I can delete that off the agenda. I'll delete that item off the agenda.
Proposed revision from Alderman Parker is to delete item 7A from the agenda, which is a public appearance by Ms. Brickley Miller. Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been deleted from the agenda. Alderman Parker?
That's all I have, Mayor.
Are there any further? Alderman Vaughn?
On the engineering division, we request consideration of accept the lowest bid for Falcon Construction Company for the street improvement project. Move that to consent.
Proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn is to place the acceptance of the low bid from Falcon Construction for street improvement projects as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda.
Mayor, can I
Hold
add?
on. Alderman Vaughn, did you have further proposed revisions?
One more. J on the public service.
Proposed revision from Alderman Vaughn
J1.
is to place item 11J1 on the consent agenda. That is the approval of issuing a notice to proceed to Stidham Construction for emergency repairs to substandard drainage structures located on Jefferson Street as presented to be placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, is that your proposed revision?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Vaughn, do you have further proposed revision?
No, sir.
Alderman Sistrum.
First, I wanted to make a comment about one of the things that Alderman Vaughn placed on consent, which is the accepting the bids for this summer's street improvements. And again, I'm not even going to begin to try to remember all the streets that are on the list for this summer, but if anyone's interested, the information is available on the city website, or you could certainly call the city engineer if you need a list of those streets. I would like to also add to the consent agenda the approval of the minutes of the February 19th, 2013 regular meeting as corrected at the table. That's item 4A.
Proposed revision from Alderman Sistrunk is to place the approval of the minutes of the February 19th, 2013 regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville as presented and corrected by the city attorney on this consent agenda. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your proposed revision?
Sure.
Do I hear an objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Sistrunk, do you have further proposed revisions?
Do we need to add personnel back to the executive session? No?
My understanding is that is not ripe for consideration.
Okay.
Mr.
I
Attorney?
didn't know if there were other issues.
Not the issue that's already been taken off, but
Correct. There may be another issue. Let's put a placeholder for personnel.
So proposed revision from Alderman Sistrunk is to add a personnel line item under Roman numeral 14, executive session. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the agenda. Alderman Sistrunk, do you have further proposed revisions?
I do not.
Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? All right. Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made to approve the agenda as revised by Alderman Vaughn. Do I hear a second?
second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. All right, the minutes were placed on the consent agenda, so that carries us to announcements and comments. I have one scheduled comment this evening, and it is a very special comment. We have the state champion Lady Volunteers basketball team here with us tonight, and I'm going to ask for y'all to come forward, and I'm going to present a proclamation.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we can get the gentleman who represents there to join you. Alderman Park, I think it'd be appropriate for him to join you with the presentation.
Sure.
Y'all just come forward and face the audience. And at this time, I'm going to read a proclamation in honor of the occasion. This is a proclamation commending and congratulating the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers team for winning a second consecutive overall state championship and a perfect 43-0 season. Whereas the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers basketball team defeated Presbyterian Christian School at A.E. Wood Coliseum on the campus of Mississippi College, March 2nd, 2013, to claim the overall state championship by a score of 54-33. Whereas the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers defeated Madison Ridgeland Academy to win a second straight Class 3A championship. Whereas Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers defeated the East Rankin Academy to win a second straight Division II 3A championship. Whereas the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers were ranked #1 in the preseason polls of the Mississippi Association of Independent Schools and finished #1 in the postseason poll. Whereas the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers achieved the postseason ranking of #5 in the Super 10, the first ever ranking in any sport achieved by an MAIS school in this poll. Whereas all 5 starters of the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers were selected first team all-conference for the South 3A. For the South 3A, Maggie Profit was selected Player of the Year. Glenn Schmidt was selected Coach of the Year for the South 3A. Whereas the roster for the Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers is as follows: Tiffany Huddleston, Anna Lee Little, Maggie Profit, Sally Kate Richardson, Nora Catherine Carroll, Meredith Higginbottom, Anna McHale, Hannah Huddleston, Taylor Campbell, McLean Morgan, Alex McGattery, and Janice Pitt. Whereas The Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers coaching staff are head coach Lynn Smith and Kayla Mosley. The managers for the Volunteers are Bonner Hughes and Sarah Morgan Pelton. The scorekeeper is Beth Crawford, and the trainer is David Ruffin. Whereas, it is with great pride that we recognize the accomplishments of this championship team, which has brought honor to their school and their community. Therefore, I, Parker Wiseman, as mayor of the city of Starkville, do hereby proclaim this, the second day of April 2013, to be Starkville Academy Lady Volunteers Day. Means so much to us. Thank you. And y'all will notice in that proclamation that the only score that was actually listed was the final game, which was the overall score. It wouldn't have been very sportsmanlike for us to include those other scores because they were all very, very lopsided. Ladies, I have enjoyed following you all season long. You have been quite a story for this community, and I know it's involved lots and lots of hard work, so we appreciate what you've done. Now, if y'all don't mind, we can all face forward and pose for a couple of pictures. Tell us if you can fit us in.
After that, can we take another picture with you, Richmond, because he was in front of everybody back
Okay,
there.
yeah, we can repose that. Do we need to stack it in a little bit, or can?
Yeah.
Tell us what you can get. Get that one. All right, now, Coach, you and I will do a pose.
I don't mind this at all. If you want to say all that.
It's in his ward.
I didn't know if you was texting had an hour long, just making sure you got.
Not yet.
Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'd love to come back again.
We hope to come back.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Ms. Smith, thank you. It's always good to see you.
Oh, stranded.
Careful to do the presentation, but I'm gonna go ahead and say something to him. I wanna say something.
All right, that will conclude my comments for this evening. Do we have any comments by the members of the board? Alderman Carver.
I was just gonna let the community know the Mayor's Youth Council has taken, the Mayor's Youth Council is gonna have a couple weekends coming up in the spring that they're gonna get out and do some community service hours, and we're gonna recognize them afterward. They're gonna come out and do some community service hours and pick up litter and things like that. And what I'm gonna be doing from these different aldermen, I'll be calling you in the next couple of days. If you've got any kind of thoroughfare or road in your ward that you want the kids to come out and pick litter up, I know in the next couple of Saturdays we're gonna be out there doing it. So I'll be contacting each one of y'all probably the next day or two. But we'll recognize these kids also. This is yet another thing that this Mayor's Youth Council has come through and been a leadership in the community by doing. So the next couple of Saturdays, you know, y'all will get a call from me if there's anything that we can help you out in your ward, something like that, let me know.
And if I could expand on that, I've talked to Marquita Outlaw, who is our former city clerk, who works closely with the Mayor's Youth Council, and to Charlotte Ware, who's a member of the Mayor's Youth Council, and they will be getting started this Saturday. I know that they plan to be in Ward 2 this Saturday, and one of the things that we agreed that would be something that would be of help was that if you were aware of a particular area that needed to have something picked up, if you could call and give us the address of that area. And the simplest way to do that is to contact the mayor's office, 323-2525, 323-2525, and Ms. Wilson will keep those addresses and forward those on to the Mayor's Youth Council. But they will be getting started this weekend.
Further comments? Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, just 3 comments. So let me just start off first. I had not planned to make this one. I do want to just go on record to commend the Starkville Academy girls basketball team for having done such an exemplary job. 43-0 record is very exemplary and very outstanding. So they are part of the community, so we should not let that go unnoticed. So they did a job well done. Miss Glenn Smith has a very outstanding record. She has been successful all her life. She has coached at Starkville High School, and she is doing a magnificent job with the Starkville Academy girls basketball team. So we wish them continued success in all their endeavors. I think last year, Mr. Alderman Parker, I said I can get to a game. You had to remind me. I'm getting a little older now. You had to remind me about the basketball. So I need to go down and watch one of the games this coming fall. The next 2 comments are just public service announcements. I've gotten a few inquiries about the polling places for the municipal elections, and I'm going to announce those at this meeting and the next meeting. The polling places did not change for the municipal election as the boundary lines did. So for the public and for our TV audience, I want to announce all the polling places. Ward 1 will vote at the National Guard on Highway 12 West in Starkville. Ward 2 will vote at the Sportsplex on Lynn Lane. Ward 3 will also vote at the Sportsplex on Lynn Lane. Ward 4 will vote here in this boardroom, in this courtroom here at City Hall. And of course, Ward 4 did see a lot of changes, of course, along some of the other wards. Ward 5 will vote at Fire Station number 3, which is on the corner of Garrett Road and Highway 389, which is North Starkville. That's Ward 5. Ward 6 will vote in the Fellowship Hall at the Mount Pelier Missionary Baptist Church, at the Mount Pelier Missionary Baptist Church Fellowship Hall. Once you go into that parking lot on the south side, that Fellowship Hall entrance will be right there to the side. That is located at 840 North Jackson Street. And finally, Ward 7 will vote in the Octavia Hall County Circuit Court Annex building in the lobby. And that is the newer courthouse, the one between the county school building and Ashford Garage. The second public announcement, and Mr. City Finance Director, if I'm saying anything wrong about this, just let me know. There are some citizens who were moved from one ward to another because of redistricting. Let me give an example. Let's say that you're a resident of Pleasant Acres, a resident of Timberco, or a resident of Shadowwood. So at the last election in 2009, you would have voted in Ward 3. You would have been in Ward 3, but now if you're in those areas, you're going to be in Ward 4. So the point I want to make is that your voting precinct is going to change from the Sportsplex to City Hall if you're in those areas identified. And to add on to that, our City Clerk's Office and Election Commission is sending out notices indicating that all of those individuals who have been moved from one ward to another as a result of re-registration will have a new polling place, and there's no action of any kind that has to be taken by one who has been moved from one ward to another because of redistricting. So the City Clerk's Office has been working real hard to get notices out to indicate your new ward and your new polling place. So, Mr. Clerk, did I state that correctly?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I'll state that at the next at the next meeting, because we do have a lot of citizens and others who watch our board meetings. So again, let me say this real quick to the polling place. Ward 1 voted National Guard. Ward 2, the Sportsplex. Ward 3, the Sportsplex. Ward 4, City Hall in this boardroom. Ward 5, Fire Station 3 on the corner of Garrett and 389. Ward 6, Fellowship Hall, Mount Pelier Missionary Baptist Church. Ward 7, Octavia Hall County Circuit Court Annex in the lobby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you all.
Do we have any further comments from the members?
I
Alderman
got
Ball.
one, Mr. Mayor. This is public safety concerning the buses. I was a public school bus, and Mr. Lindley, I was talking to you earlier about it. On the narrow streets and in a lot of the residential area, I'm getting a lot of complaints about speeding in these areas. And if you can help me any kind of way, Vine Streets, and I got them in quite a few areas. And I heard this last year too, and it's coming back repeatedly this year, school buses. If you can help us in that area, sure be greatly appreciated. Secondly, I would like to commend the mayor and the board for what they've done, 182, Mr. Kemp and I, mainly Mr. Kemp. I appreciate it so much, Edward Kemp. We had talked about this 182, and first, MDOT told me it'd be 3 years before they get to 182, but we thank God they get into 182 next year. And I just thank the mayor and the board and commend Mr. Edward Kemp for all your hard work that you've done to make this possible.
Do we have any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Tom Ward, 7. I want to recognize Vice Mayor Sid Trump and Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you, Al.
Mr. Turner?
Last week, I believe it was, I was almost bit by a dog, white and black spot. We have a dangerous dog law, but for some reason when it get hot, people do not make it safe for us as pedestrians. Also, we have cars parked on the sidewalk. We have brush on the sidewalk that makes it difficult for the pedestrian. And it's getting kind of congested on Jefferson Street, but we hope that it completes soon. It make it kind of hard for the funeral director if you get a death call, or either if the police or sheriff have to speed to a situation, it makes it kind of hard to make sure that they don't hit no machine. But if you can take care of that soon as possible, it'll make it easier on the funeral director and everyone else that we would like for the police to kind of check on our elder people. They shouldn't get warm. And we would like to find a way that it's getting hot also, and set the garbage out. Cats and dogs have a way of tearing into it. If you could help us out on that, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Good evening, board, mayor. My name is George. I said good evening, but I think I spoke to everybody. I didn't hear nobody else say nothing right now.
Good evening, Mr.
Oh, okay. Well,
Good evening.
All right, I would just like to say to my alderman, Attorney Perkins, who's sitting here, and also to Mr. Henry Vaughn. I would like to thank y'all for what y'all, done in the community, because it's a hard job. I'm on Starkville Park and Recreation. It's a hard job. Doing different things, trying to satisfy everybody. But I'd like for y'all to come and look, just look, and I know Eric and, everybody comes and look, but look at the sport, at the park where we're building, where the children will have something to play at, come and make ideas, suggestions, or do anything. But most of all, I came today to ask y'all if y'all will attend our NAACP band. Okay, we know everybody, go for re-election and everything. We do want to remember you for being there now. This is going to be April the 27th, and it's going to be held at the Sportsplex at 7 o'clock. And our tickets are $25, and you may pick them up from any member of the NAACP, and let us know that you appreciate us also for being here in the community. And I would just like to say, as you're out campaigning, remember where you put the signs for now. Don't put them so you can block the road, but pull them back up. We'll see them all. I guarantee you we'll see them all. But thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor and Board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Vaughn.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Taylor. I want to invite all of you all Democrats to our Beans and Green, which is a fundraiser. March the 22nd at the Sportsplex.
April 27th.
I mean, April. Man, that's on a Monday, so everyone is welcome.
Republicans
Tickets,
too?
the public is welcome.
No, Republicans too.
Oh yeah, everybody. Yeah, they can come on in here. No, everyone is welcome. Tickets are $15 for adults, $12 for students, with an ID. Presley, our Public Service Commissioner, will be the guest honor, along with a few other politicians. And hope everyone that's running for office come on out. Help support. Buy a table, 6-8, no problem. See me, I'll get you tickets. See me for the NAACP also, we get you a ticket for that too. We got you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Davis.
Mr. Davis. Beans and greens.
Do we have any further citizen comments?
It's a long-standing
Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments?
Democrat.
All right, seeing none, we'll move to public appearances. And we have one public appearance remaining tonight, and that's a public appearance by Mr. Holland Cox. Mr. Cox, you were to request a banner. That banner has been approved on the consent agenda. Would you still like to make a presentation?
It's not necessary.
Okay.
Just thank you for the proclamation and allow for that.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. The next matter before you is a presentation and consideration of approving the Highway 182 roadway corridor in, excuse me. Our first public hearing on amending all existing ordinances containing entities with binding authority that create advisory-only authority reporting to the Board of Aldermen. Alderman Perkins, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the recognition. Yes, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this ordinance, and Ms. Spruill, we're gonna need you to clean this ordinance up so it'll have right language for final adoption. This ordinance pertains solely and exclusively to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals and the Stormwater Advisory Board, and we just want to make these boards consistent as with other boards that are purely advisory in nature. And so this just be consistent, and this will ensure that the Board of Aldermen, the elected body, will have the final act and actions on all matters that are within the scope and jurisdiction of those boards. So this is just a matter of consistency, and we are going to have this hearing. Ms. Spruill will have the next draft to that with the language in just instead of all boards, just Board of Adjustment and Appeals and the Stormwater Advisory.
Are there any questions or comments? Alderman Carver.
I may be wrong, but they're already advisory right now in nature, aren't they? Or is this cleaning that up, or?
Well, they are appealable, but everything they pass does not come to the board unless it is appealed. This would make it come automatically to the board. It would be a recommendation.
Okay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
And the Board of Adjustment and Appeals and the Stormwater Hearing Board are the two that we know of. If there are any old vestigial boards out there that need to be swept in, obviously count those as well.
Alderman Carver.
In recent meetings, we started discussing and all the landscaping ordinances. Is there going to be an appeal board with that also? Is that something that would be included with this?
If it is, and the board were to pass this ordinance up, it would only make sense for that body to be an advisory body as well. The intent of this ordinance is for there to be no truly quasi-judicial bodies anymore.
Okay.
Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to mention this to my colleague, and so Ms. Spruill is tuned in on this. I think it is our intent from listening to the discussion at the table tonight that the Parks Commission certainly is to remain in the status that they're in, so they're to remain completely autonomous. So it's not my intent. I haven't heard anyone else express anything otherwise. So that, unless is that
this ordinance, I think this one clearly only addresses
right.
quasi-judicial.
That's right. I just want to be clear on that before she got to draft it. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Are there any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, at this time we will now open the floor to public comment. And we will hear public comment, hearing from speakers for and speakers against the proposed ordinance in alternating fashion. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Each side will be given a total of 15 minutes to speak. We will continue to hear from speakers for and speakers against until either both sides have exhausted their full 15-minute allotment or there is no one else wishing to speak. Is there anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Mr. Burnham?
I'm Alan Burnham from Ward 2 and the current chair of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And as that individual, and having served on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals for several years now, I think that this is the right move to make. It's your responsibility to have the final say-so, and in one instance where I was serving as chair and was put in the position of having the Board of Adjustments and Appeals set policy that we would all have to operate under, I found that to be a rather uncomfortable situation, and it was your responsibility, not the responsibility of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. So I'm all for this ordinance as it has appeared in the e-packet which I read, and I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone now wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance?
Good evening to everyone. My name is Al Turner. We make a lot of ordinance, and the citizens already get mad with the board. Then they get mad with me because I can't explain. You up there said then you can't explain and you already mad with me. What is the Board of Adjustment? I don't even know what that is. I know what stormwater is, but what is the meaning of the Board of Adjustment so I can understand and I don't be dumb.
Mr. Mayor, could we yield to the chairman here for him to be recognized?
Mr. Burnham, would you like to field that?
All I would say is that the Board of Adjustments and Appeals deals with requests for variances that deal with dimensions of the placement of buildings on property. Therefore, setbacks, side sets, back sets, this type of thing are the issues that come before the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Also, I'm trying to think, that's been about all that we have dealt with, and generally it has to do with granting a request to grant exceptions, generally where people are looking to set buildings closer to property lines than are set out in the ordinance that deal with those issues. So I don't see this as an additional ordinance that the city or the public has to deal with. All it's doing is placing the responsibility where it belongs. The Board of Adjustments and Appeals will still hear requests for variance as far as I'm concerned, and that's the way that I read the proposed ordinance, and therefore they would be making a recommendation to you whether or not the variance would be granted or not be granted, and it would still sit in your lap where it belongs.
Is there anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Anyone now wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone now wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance? Anyone now wishing to speak for, against, or indifferent to the proposed ordinance? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, we will hear final comments from the members of the board. Are there any concluding comments from the members of the board? Alderman Sistrunk?
I'll just say that, again, this is meant to address quasi-judicial boards, as Mr. Burnham noted, to place the responsibility for those decisions here at the Board of Aldermen with the elected officials, which is where it should rest.
Are there any further board comments? Any further concluding comments from the members of the board? Any further concluding comments from the members of the board? All right, seeing none, that will conclude this, our first public hearing on the ordinance to realign committees. At this time, we're ready for our presentation on the Highway 182 roadway improvement plan. As Mr. Kemp prepares, one thing I'm sure that he will allude to that needs to be said early and often in this presentation is this project is made possible in no small part by our Northern District Transportation Commissioner, who happens to be a local resident, Mike Taggart. For years, the city has been in contact with the Department of Transportation seeking roadway improvements along the 182 corridor. He has worked very, very diligently along with his staff, and our staff has worked very diligently with him over the last couple of months to see this project into fruition. Now, Mr. Kemp, would you like to make a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that kickoff there. Highway 182 has been a source of conversation, I think, with every member of the board and the mayor here over this past term. At some point, you all have come to me and said, is there anything we can do about Highway 182? And I reluctantly have to tell you, well, it's not really our road. And as the mayor alluded to, we have had a lot of conversations over the past 2 to 3 years with MDOT, encouraging them to improve the roadway. This board has made every effort to try to encourage a redevelopment of Highway 182. As we all agree, Highway 182 is such an important part of our city. Most of us travel on it every day, if not multiple times a day. So it's an important part of our town. It's an important part of our commerce, and we don't want the condition of the roadway to be a deterrent to development in this area. And so we have been working with MDOT to try to not only improve it, but improve it in a way that we think will be in line with what this board's vision of what Highway 182 can be. As we all know, Highway 182 has changed a whole lot since it was built, nearly 100 years ago. It used to be a highway. It used to have a lot of large trucks coming through it, but now with the bypass, it is very much a local street. It is similar to a main street, and I think that's the vision that this board has and kind of wants that area to grow into. So I want to talk a little bit about this project, and let me just say at the beginning that this is an MDOT project. MDOT has done a great job of bringing us to the table, allowing us to provide input. Of course, everything that they do is going to benefit everything that we're trying to do. It is truly a team effort, and as the mayor said, I really do want to commend Commissioner Taggart, his staff, the district in Tupelo headquarters, even our executive director, Melinda McGrath, has come and visited this site to take a look at it and offer some opinions on how to improve it. So I say that if there are some real specific questions, I may or may not be able to answer them, so I'll just throw that disclaimer in there. Not exactly sure the exact cost. We're still in the design development phase. What we're going to see tonight is a preliminary, and so the general conceptual numbers we have heard so far is it's in excess of $2 million. So a large investment for our city. It's going to include from the city limits over on the western part of the city, past the bypass, all the way through to where it hits kind of the Highway 12 extended overpass is what we've been indicated. Now, this project, of course, is going to have a resurfacing, and that's what everybody feels and hears when you drive down it, the constant bumping. And so it will be easier to traverse down through there. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more comfortable ride. But it'll also improve other parts of the roadway that will benefit and help that to become more of a local corridor for redevelopment. And that includes some landscape islands. These areas where it's just a continuous open driveway, MDOT is going to come in and pour some landscape islands opportunities for tree plantings or things like that that the city can look at into the future. But also it's going to have it in those areas where there is a landscape island, it will also have a sidewalk. So you are starting to build a little bit of a network on Highway 182, and as y'all know, there's a school on Highway 182, there's a good amount of foot traffic already on 182, so the need is there. The facilities aren't there, but hopefully this will take us a step forward. And also, the part of this will include some repouring of driveways for businesses that are in very bad shape, some that may not even be concrete right now, may be gravel. So there's some areas where that will make an improvement for business owners as well. So everybody says, okay, well, we're going to pave it, and 2 weeks later, we're going to fill the bumps again. Well, that's just a little bit about the nature of that roadway, as you all know, and we've had a lot of these discussions in the past. It was originally built as a 2-lane concrete roadway. Over time, the section between Connor and Old West Point, I believe, has been widened to 3 lanes, so you can even see where there's a joint along the edge. And of course, joints every 10 to 12 feet as you're driving down the road. That is kind of what gives you that rhythmic beat as you're driving in your car. MDOT, we initially, when we came and started having the initial discussions, we said, is there any way, if we were to throw out what we would really like, we would like to start from the very bottom and build it back up. And they looked at that from a cost standpoint, but we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 times what this is going to cost.
You're talking about 30 or 40 million? Or?
It's in that ballpark is what they've indicated. And it's just a monumental project to do that, a complete rebuild from the ground up. And MDOT is in similar financial constraints that we are. They only have so many infrastructure dollars to cover the entire state. So they can't pour that big of an amount of money in one short length of project when there's so many other needs. They have indicated to us that they're going to try a new technology that they've started doing on these concrete pavements in the state, calling a saw and a seal. So essentially what they do is they will mark where all of these joints are. They will overlay it. Well, first they'll level it, and then they'll overlay and come back with a saw and cut where those joints are. So that provides the asphalt to have some flexibility. And then they will come in where that saw cut is and put some type of an asphalt sealant to provide that flexibility. So what that's going to do is you will probably still hear that rhythmic beat as you travel down, but it will not deteriorate at each one of those joints. You can see right now, every time it rains, it feels full of water. It continues to chip away, and that's where the tires start actually going down, and you start feeling a much rougher ride. So they said they've done this on several other projects in the state, of the exact situation, and have had good success. We're slated, they've indicated to us, in June of this year is when they will bid, if not maybe a little bit sooner. From now till then, they're still going to be working on the plans and finalizing everything. And then construction starting this summer with, tentatively to finish by, I would say, early spring of next year would be probably the worst case scenario. If the weather cooperates, there's a possibility they could get it done this calendar year, maybe plus a little bit. Yes.
Will the incorporation of sidewalks involve them moving any of the utility poles as well? Because I think there's a couple of spots where the poles intersect with the sidewalk.
Right.
And
that's a good question. I guess to answer your question, there's no utility relocation as part of this, okay? Anywhere there's a current existing sidewalk, those areas will not be improved at all. Okay? What we've talked about with MDOT and here internally is this corridor, once we have this next group of sections of sidewalk, would be a great candidate for a Safe Routes to School project. And it would address maybe not relocating the poles, but maybe pouring some sidewalks that go around the poles one way or the other, providing an alternate access from an ADA standpoint. And I think that's where you're going with that. There are also several places along the roadway that are broken up, old sidewalks. Those will not be improved at this part of this project. The sidewalks included will only be those within the landscape islands, and we will also, which will be ADA compliant. They'll have the ramps on either side. And then where we pour the new driveways, we're gonna make every effort to make those ADA compliant as well.
Are they looking at 3-foot sidewalks? I mean, do you have
5 foot.
5, great.
5 foot. And I'm gonna show you a picture of what it potentially is gonna look like at the end, to kind of give you a visual. Did you have a question?
A question and a comment on the safe routes to school part of it. We're just in the process, as you know, you were here for the beginning of that one. We're in the process of finishing a grant, and so this is really good timing for us to let them do their construction, wrap up that current grant, and then apply so that we can tie into this construction project with a new safe routes to school grant. I'm guessing you're going to show us pretty pictures next. When you do, would you talk about the areas around the school and traffic in that area?
Sure, absolutely. Another thing that MDOT was faced with on this project is they have got to have the project completed by March, April of 2014. And if we went through a long utility relocation process and had to do a bunch of other things in addition to what we're doing here, it potentially could have delayed the project. So we made the decision with MDOT, we want to not deter what you have on the board. You know, let's go ahead and get this done. We can look at improving the walkability, the pedestrian access at a later time through another project. I don't know how pretty these pictures are, Alderman Sistrunk, but like I said, these are conceptual and they are very difficult to see on this screen, but I do have some larger prints in my office if you'd like to stop by. So starting here at Long Street, and just so the board knows, we're looking at the access islands and landscape islands from Long Street to Old West Point Road. Anywhere beyond those, it really turns into a 2-lane section. To the west, there's really not a lot of access issues, not really even opportunities to do a pedestrian walkway there because of the grades that we have. But for instance, right here, this is just a continual open cut here at Pilcher, which is a widely used entrance exit for the schools. This is what you would see as a typical landscape island. Here is the school, Alderman Sistrunk, that you alluded to. The parallel parking will stay in place here. But one of the great additions that we've had from through comments from this board as well as people in the community is we need a turn lane here to allow vehicles to turn into the school and not back up the vehicles that want to continue west. So MDOT has agreed to provide that turn lane. It probably is going to hold 6 to 8 cars in the queue. I mean, I wish it would be a little longer, but that's really all the space that they have for it. And when I was talking earlier about a continuous open driveway, this is the area in front of the University Motel. As you know, right now is basically an open driveway from one side of that right here all the way almost down to here, and so there will be some landscape islands in that. Here's another view here, just kind of as you enter the kind of the downtown district. This section here from Jackson to Montgomery is for the most part going to remain as is. And then here's the section on to West Point Road. Again, kind of difficult to see, but that's the general intent. And here's kind of a photograph of what we're trying to make the finished product look like. This is in front of Peters Rock Church. This is the recent improvement they did as part of their fellowship hall project. And this is very similar to what it will look like. If you could imagine maybe a continuous driveway opening from this edge of concrete back to behind where I'm taking this photograph. And what it's going to do is provide a landscape island. This is going to be 5 feet in width from the curb to the sidewalk. And then we'll have a 5-foot sidewalk and then an additional 5-foot landscape island behind that. So this one is a little deeper than a typical one that MDOT will build. What that's gonna also do in these areas where you build another curb here is will allow more parking to pull into that landscape island. So there is a potential to actually increase parking on some of these businesses. And again, the repouring, you can see that this is ADA compliant here across this driveway, and then the ramp up and down on either side of this island. It will look very similar to that. That's pretty much all I have. MDOT has requested the board provide a motion to be included in the minutes, which I've included in the packet. I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have to the best that I can. Turn it over to you, Mayor.
Discussion. Alderman Sister.
It is a terrific step forward for our community, and there's a lot of hard work that has gone into this. Edward, as Alderman Vaughn said, has worked very closely with MDOT. He's not here tonight, but this is a project that Alderman Dumas has been very passionate about over the last few years too, and has worked diligently, and I'd like for him to be recognized in all that too. I know that when we were going through the Louisville Street widening project, Edward, that it was a similar project in that there were large access points, wide driveways. At the corner of Lynn Lane in Louisville, you actually had an entrance point that was essentially under the red light, so
Right.
you had a real safety issue there. But the engineering firm and you worked closely with the businesses along there, talked with them, managed to narrow some of those and to close some of those access points. And I'm assuming that y'all are doing the same type of work on 182, and as y'all continue to refine this project, they will have that opportunity to have input, and we may see even more of these access points restrictions.
Right. There's definitely opportunity for someone who, say, has 3 driveways right now, say, hey, you know what, I really don't need 3. I would rather have, more landscaping out front or more opportunity for parking. We're hopefully gonna have some more of those conversations over the coming weeks. Like I said, this is a very conceptual, preliminary plan. We've been talking about this with MDOT off and on for 2 years or more, but really probably in the last month or two, we've started having regular conversations, and they just need a little bit more time to kind of tweak their design and get it down and make those contacts, and we're going to be part of having those conversations as well going forward.
Well, it worked really well on Louisville Street. I think the feedback's been generally quite positive, and I think this is a great step forward for us.
And Louisville Street is a great example, and I should have mentioned that. Thank you for bringing that up, about how you can improve the corridor, not only in the roadway, but alongside the edge of the road, the right-of-way as well. And it makes a big difference, not only from safety, but aesthetics as well.
Alderman Carver.
First of all, I want to say, I guess thank you for this presentation. That's probably the biggest news I've heard in the last 4 years since being on this board.
It's good
Probably
news.
the biggest positive. A couple of things I've got questions about though. As that saw and seal, what do you expect? It's gonna be 2 or 3 years before you can really start? Do you ever see it expanding and getting back to the field we have now, or do you think that? How much do you know about that technology?
I don't know a whole lot about
Okay,
it,
that's
but
I just don't know.
in the past, and I think you've got a valid concern about, how long will our overlay last? And we've had the same conversations with MDOT. We obviously want it to last as long as we can. I can't remember the last time that it was overlaid. Alderman Perkins may be able to remember. It's probably in the early 2000s or late 90s, probably.
182, it's been a long time. It's been a number of years ago.
And we know that it's going to be, with the budget, the rising asphalt prices, we know it's going to be this long, if not longer, before we get them to come back. So we really want to make sure that everything that they do, and they do as well. I mean, they don't want to have to come and do continual maintenance.
I just didn't know
You know,
if talks have been said about how long that, I mean,
Right.
this is, either way, it's great.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an improvement. I don't know if they've done it long enough to say it's gonna last so many more years than
Right.
normal. But in the past, all they would do is come in and overlay and leave, you know. So I think we're going to see a noticeable improvement.
Another thing I got, and you and I spoke about this before, but anytime you know, you get into the landscape islands and anytime you add the grass, you know, I'm kind of a favor of sidewalks. I'm in favor of putting them right up next to the road just 'cause, but even though this is MDOT project and they're adding in these grass features and these green spaces, whose responsibility is it? Are we adding more maintenance to our city grass cutting staff by adding these landscaping islands, or is it gonna be MDOT responsibility?
That'll be something that this board probably ultimately will need to weigh in on. But
MDOT's not gonna do the type of maintenance that we would desire on it.
exactly, they'll come in and mow it, you know, 2 or 3 times in the summer. And I don't know if that's necessarily what we want. If we do want this to be an urban kind of entrance to our downtown, I would think we would probably want something that does have maybe, you know, some nice aesthetic features.
Well, just for future budget purposes, I guess our department head needs to know that and planning into additional grass cutting.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you've got a valid point. I mean, we do need to look at ways of reducing ongoing maintenance, but I think that there's a way that you can do both. I think there's a way that you can plant and put things in there that don't require it to be mowed every week, you know, that may only require it to be, and I'm not a landscape person, but to be chopped down once a year, you know, to kind of be thinned out occasionally, but still provide a little bit, as opposed to just, MDOT's standard on these islands is either to pave the whole thing or to put, like clay gravel in them. You know, and I don't really think that's what we want in this context either.
And our long-term plan for Louisville Street, and we'll be doing this as budget allows, is to come back in and do some plantings in those landscape islands, and we're looking at it with an eye toward very low maintenance, very hardy, durable, drought-tolerant type plants that maybe need to be weeded in the spring and again in the fall, and otherwise are just there.
Right.
So we are looking at that, and I mentioned Louisville Street before, but I think it's sort of a test case for how these kind of things can work on 182 as well. So
I just want to again say, I hope the newspaper guys put this out there, because this is probably the story of our term, the greatest thing I've seen as far as roadway improvements. And if there's any way we can, as a board, beside this motion, thank Commissioner Taggart, I'm in for it.
Mr. Mayor, let me briefly recognize this.
Hold on, Alderman Vaughn's got his hand up. Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, this is certainly an excellent step forward. As our engineers stated, it's been a number of years since we've seen some overlay to 182. It's certainly in a very poor and dilapidated state now. I think that any improvement would be significant. It is well welcome. You know, with the proposal that you've outlined, Mr. Kemp, it's a win-win situation for the entire city, and we have sufficient time to decide how we're going to handle the landscape, and we'll make that decision. But this is a road that is highly traveled. A lot of motorists travel this road every day, and this is, as the gentleman from one said, it's one of the greatest roadway improvements that we have had in this city in a very substantial time period. Of course, we did a great job down there on Louisville Street, but this 182 is something that's been talked and discussed for a number of years. But I am also very elated. It's always good to see, Ms. Kemp, we've gone through these roads a number of years, and when we see these roads that have been on the list for a long time, and this it's been an issue of dollars. We just haven't had the dollars, but it's been said here. We certainly want to thank our highway commissioner for his commitment to this project, and that needs to be verbalized to him, that we the governing body, the taxpayers, the citizens, and all here thank him for his support, for his vote, for his dedication, for his commitment, and we appreciate him the fact that he's one of our own, and we stand ready to support him in the project. And Mr. Mayor, I'm going to yield the floor to the gentleman from 7, if this is in order.
Alderman Vaughn.
Again, I just want to commend Mr. Kemp and thank the mayor and the board, because it's something that we've been battling with for these 4 years since we've been on the term. So if anyone got anything else to say, I'm gonna move to approve.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to approve the Highway 182 roadway improvement plan along with the landscape islands, sidewalks, and minimum access management in accordance with the provided plan. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carper. Alderman Vaughn, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. Thank you, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you all again. Thank you, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you. The next matter before you is a request for approval of the City of Starkville Fire Department claims docket as of March 28, 2013. All right, we'll give Alderman Carver a moment to exit the room, and he also is excusing himself from the meeting.
I'll be right back.
All right, and we do have 4, but we have exactly 4. So if anybody else gets up, we'll lose quorum.
Move approval, Mayor.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to approve of the fire department's claims docket as presented. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
That is.
Do I hear a second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Measure clearly passes, and I do not think,
It's
2 to 2.
2 to 2, excuse me, let's do it one more time, get a clean vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 2 in favor with 2 against, this measure ends in a tie from the board. I will break the tie. I vote yea. Measure passes, and I don't think Alderman Carver is coming back.
He left his sunglasses.
Oh, I'll take it.
Oh, those aren't sunglasses.
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
the matter you now have before you is a request for approval of the Starkville claims docket for all departments except for the fire department as of March 28th. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Sistrunk to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments except for the fire department as of March 28th. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 By a vote of 3 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. That will conclude the open session portion of our agenda. We do have matters potentially for an executive session, a motion to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session is in order. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Perkins to go into a closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. This time I'll ask that everybody clear the room so that the board can go into a closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. And guys,